I'm super excited about the retail side of it because we work in that space quite a bit, and I'm interested to see how we can innovate the space and interested to see what everybody's takes are on it from the wide array of expertise we have here. So I think just to kick it off, we just want to kind of go through and have everybody a little bit introduce themselves, tell them about their background in the retail space and, what maybe they've seen in prior years, and then just a little bit about kind of the shift that they've seen in a little bit, and then we'll dive into some of these questions. So John, if you wanted to start, I can jump in with you.
Okay, it's your turn.
Okay, am I on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm John Atencio, and I'm the founder of John Atencio Fine Jewelry. I've been making jewelry for 50 years. I've been in business for 45, and have a vertically integrated business where we contract and manufacture jewelry that we design, and we sell at retail and wholesale. We have 6 stores. We sell e-commerce, and we also sell in the wholesale channel to other jewelers throughout the United States. Our production is all offshore. We do production in India, China, and Thailand.
Awesome. Matthew, you want to introduce yourself and let us know a little bit about yourself?
Yes. Hi. So my name is Matthew. I actually work for Zeppelin Development. So I'm the retail director at Zeppelin Development. So I overview all of the different retail spaces and opportunities we have in our different spaces. But I also have my own LC and operate some of the spaces myself with my own staff and everything. So it's kind of a two-way thing. I'm originally from Montreal, Canada. So that explained the bad English. So French is my mother tongue. And I just moved here a little under 3 years ago. My background is more from a brand perspective than like purely retail. So for the last 15 years in Montreal, we had different brands doing mostly fashion accessories, so handbags and bags, mostly leather. So we built our own like production facilities in Montreal, like not a big one. We had like maybe like 15 employees in production, but everything was made in Montreal. And then we had like distribution and wholesale in the US and Europe and Japan also. And then we started opening retail spaces in Montreal. And I'm not part of like those brands that we had, so we sold everything. And then Zeppelin approached me to come here and to help them with some of the retail they wanted to integrate in their spaces. So like a lot of the retail I'm doing right now is not just retail for retail, or in the sense that retail is part of a kind of bigger environment. So it's thought of as creating an environment that has food and beverage and that has retail and that has other options. So it's not just like solely like retail. So I also have a different approach, and it's an approach that's really more based on brick and mortar, since I work for a real estate development company. So like that was always the goal, to just like create experience and created spaces mostly. So yeah.
Awesome. Sky?
Hi, I'm Sky. My personal background is in fine art and business, and I've spent the past 10 years working in the small boutique retail space, mostly in floral shops across the country that also have a gift front-facing shop, brick and mortar as well. But then I've also spent a few years managing small clothing boutiques as well as small gift shop boutiques. Before COVID, we were in the process of launching a pop-up boutique downtown at Dairy Block that has been put on hold indefinitely. And through COVID, I've started a growth agency and sales representation firm called Wolf Theory to, help small artists and creative professionals succeed and kind of facilitate their business from idea to execution and helping them elevate. And a part of that is the sales representation side, which, helping small shops grow and pivot and find new brands to bring in, but then also helping these small makers figure out the best way to approach these small shops that are facing COVID, difficulties.
Yeah, that's a great pivot. Interested to hear how that's working.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to kind of jump into and get the first question we had that I'm interested to get everyone's input on is, knowing that it's a changing marketplace in the retail space. Even before COVID, things were shifting. E-com's come on in the last, really strong in the last 10 years, and that's somewhat changed the way people shop. I'm curious just to get everyone's insight into, what they see, will be accelerated, by COVID with those changes, and what will shift them completely, and maybe what might go away, and what might emerge from this in the retail landscape, both on the e-com side, but also in the brick and mortar world.
Can anyone feel free to jump in?
I'll go ahead and start that.
Yeah.
Like I said, we had retail stores for 45 years, and really in the last 2 years, we've seen the climate change. Not really dramatically, it's changed. We do have an e-commerce site, and so we're seeing our e-commerce site grow, but we've not really been 100% committed, or we've not really been putting a lot of energy into developing that part of our business. With COVID or without COVID, we knew that this was going to change. And so in the last 6 months, we put a tremendous amount of energy into redevelopment, and a lot of money and time into an agency that's helping us redevelop our business. We're anticipating that there's going to be tremendous growth online with us while the sales are dropping off for our retail stores. So the jewelry industry is, I think, a little bit different, because I think people, especially in the price point that we are, want to touch and feel a lot of what they're buying. So I don't think we're going to see a huge change, but clearly with COVID, our business and e-commerce jumped dramatically, and I think it will continue. I just don't think it will. I don't think it will be all of our business someday. I do think we'll continue to have brick and mortar, and I think we'll get back to some sort of the same numbers that we were doing before COVID, probably in 2 years. I think it'll take a couple of years for those to get back. In the meantime, we're pushing the business pretty heavily, and we launched our site towards the end of July. And after that, we're going to put a lot of energy into our wholesale and business to business, and try to put business there as well. So we're hoping to make up the dollars that we're losing on the retail brick and mortar with wholesale and e-commerce.
John, when you do wholesale, do you do like a store within a store concept, or how does your wholesale business work out with those additional retailers?
We have retailers that are pretty much the same business model as what we have. And so we take a small space in a store, but we're not building a store within a store at this point. We're basically selling to them, and they're free to merchandise it or free to display it. We do provide displays for people who want the displays, but basically they're using our brand inside their brand to keep their retail business fluid. So.
Okay.
I'm curious if e-commerce is shifting, but it won't take over completely, because of the way that e-commerce is currently set up, where most people, when they shop online, tend to go to encompassing stores, Amazon or a reseller. But I wonder if, when you're taking the time to look through Etsy, a lot of people are discouraged by that. And unless you have brand awareness for your brick and mortar and people know that you are online, it's building that online presence in addition to that brick and mortar presence. So I wonder if there's a way to bridge that gap because there's so many online retailers in the internet. It's a large place to sift through. How you become known, if that's the new marketplace, if it's all becomes digital or the majority of it becomes digital, like you said, people do want to touch products, they do want to see it in person. But if the majority of people are now pre-shopping online, they're picking things out before they go into store, I think it's really important for everybody to find their niche in that online marketplace. And I think that's potentially the biggest challenge that everyone's going to face is they're trying to pivot right now.
Well, I think that in the case of the online people, they're looking to build their brands. And so they're kind of coming out of their woodwork looking at brick and mortar as a way for them to have some establishment or some place where the customer can feel comfortable touching it. And I think people who are brick and mortar are doing the flip, and they're really trying to build their stores online to look a lot like or feel a lot like or have an experience like their retail store. So both sides are looking for a way to connect or a way to build their business with both now, whereas before it was I'm in brick and mortar, I'm going to stay in brick and mortar, or I'm in an e-commerce business, and that's plenty of business or plenty of opportunity for us. And so I think that is going to change. The COVID thing, I think, is pushing the e-commerce faster right now. So we have an older clientele that probably spends $1,000 or more per purchase. So our average purchase price is higher than most, but they had to reach into e-commerce in order to be fulfilled because we didn't have any brick and mortar. So I think they're going to get more comfortable, but I do think there still is a need for an experience out there.
I agree with you there, John, on the need for the experience, and that's kind of feeds into the second question that we had is, retail shopping is always about the experience, and, how will we see that experience recreated in place with safety measures, but also I'm curious how you create, connection between your e-com brand and your physical brand. And as you were saying, Sky, people are pre-shopping online now in a way that they never did before, where they know what they're looking for when they go into the store. So I'm curious, from any of you guys' perspective, how can you connect that e-com customer into the retail world? Where is that setting up an appointment for them when they come in and the pieces they're already selected and pulled out on the table for them? Or how does that become more of a cohesive experience?
That was something that I made a note of in regards to, I have my small stores that I frequent that I love that I'm shopping their Instagram before COVID, before I was going to go in. I slide into their DMs. Hey, do you have this in a medium? Can you put it aside for me? And I think that younger generations definitely are already doing that. And I feel like if there's a way to incorporate that level of attention with your staff in store where you're almost engaging those conversations online, that way you can create that personal relationship with an associate. Hey, I talked to Megan online. She was really sweet. She helped me pick out a few things. I sent her my measurements. Something that, a lot of women already have before they go clothing shopping. Hey, I sent her the styles that I like. I'm going to come in at this time, and hopefully Megan's working, and then she's already picked out a few things that either I haven't seen or that, will fit this body type and the style that I have. That I think that there's a way to create that connection through both, and it's just going to involve more conversation and more time and more commitment on that staffing and customer service side, I think, to probably ease the transaction when you're physically in the store.
Well, it's interesting because for us, we're pretty established. We have a lot of customers that come into our stores. And the reality is most of those customers that came into our stores really never knew me. We didn't really have an experience, or we didn't really share too much on a personal side, or they never really got to know me. They got to know the brand. So we're flipping that, and we're now going to go to e-commerce, and we're going to have videos, we're going to have stories, we're going to have a lot of things that the sales associates never could really share or never really even knew, because they knew me as the owner, they knew me as the boss, but they didn't really know how I got here. I really didn't know my story as well, or they didn't tell my story the way I can tell my story by a video online. And so we're hoping that we bridge this with not only doing more e-commerce business, but also sharing in the story of our brand, or the story of how I got started, or the story of me, and making it much more personable for the customer. So there's more of a connecting piece between myself as the artist or the owner and the customer that comes in the store or that goes online, that gets to know me as a person or gets to know our brand personally.
Yeah, that's great, John.
I was going to add a little something in there too. It kind of sounds like what we've been talking about is very much a hybrid model of like taking e-commerce and using that as like a tool to bringing people into the store. You know, Sky, based off what you were talking about, I picked up a few key thoughts, which are customization, personalization. That one-to-one interaction is going to be a lot stronger. And I think you're going to find that the customers are a lot more loyal. You maybe aren't going to be reaching as many people because there are going to still be those folks that don't want to go out and don't want to shop in public. But if you can hone in on the few people that are willing to come in and do a one-on-one shopping experience and make that experience really special for them, I think you're going to see a much higher return in a repeat customer. Just based off of kind of what I've experienced. I think, you know, in hospitality in that world, what we did like do at those hotels that I was doing the marketing for is really making sure that that one-to-one connection is strong. You know, maybe it's not email campaign blasts that are going to cut it anymore. It's more of this storytelling, like what John is talking about, and really making sure that there's, you know, a physical person behind the brand. It's not just a name. You're going to need a little bit more personalization, I think, than that. I'm curious, Matthew, your thoughts on any of this as well.
Yeah, I think both. I think at a online, like for us, yeah, online feeds the brick and mortar, but brick and mortar is also a way of, has always been a way of telling that story like more efficiently. Like there's some limit as what you can do online, and then more than anything for like small and independent businesses and small stores, I think it is really important to create that connection and to give that kind of like warmth, feeling that bigger brands have, or a bigger retailer will, they'll be able to do it, but it takes more time and it's harder for them to pivot, I think. And but like even like huge brand already started to I think that's the key, is that personalization and having that one-on-one connection. But I think the idea, like we talked before, is to really have like kind of a hybrid. I think that's the future. I like we talked about, even huge online, so like were before that whole thing, were opening brick and mortar just as a way of telling that story and connecting on a more personal way with customers. So I think that goes kind of both ways, definitely.
I'm thinking of, you know, a few years ago, pre all of this, I was working in a fashion boutique, and I had a very specific customer who would come in and specific brand of dress. She loved Effie's Heart dresses, and they were cotton retrofit. And this woman was in her mid 40s, and she would come in and buy every single one, every time, anytime we got anyone in. So we started emailing her or texting her when we got new dresses in. Hey, we know you like this. We know that these fit you really well. We know that, you know, this is something that you've proven to be interested in the past. And more often than not, she'd be like, great, you know my size. just ship them to me. Here's my credit card information. So I also wonder if there's a way for that customer knowledge, that relationship that you have with your consumers. Obviously, this isn't going to apply to new consumers that you're trying to reach, but most of sales for small boutiques are repeat customers anyway. That's where your loyalty base is really who's going to keep supporting you. So I wonder if there is new marketing strategies and new engagement tactics that you can have where you really get to know your customers on more than just a surface value. So you could keep providing them with these products that they might also want, but also with that relationship, because I think that's what people are looking for in this time more than ever, is really just that connection. Hey, I'm just going out and talking to people. My favorite sales associate that I bought this dress from 2 months ago just texted me about something I might like. Yeah, chances are I'm going to engage in that either on social media, or maybe if I don't buy that now, maybe I buy something else, or maybe I wait a little bit. I think that's a really important component that could benefit a lot of small businesses right now.
Absolutely. And I think everyone's kind of echoing the same point that greater personalization is key. The more that you're able to build that relationship with the customer and know what they need, the greater retention you're going to keep from, keeping them as a customer and getting them to return back to buy more dresses, to get more jewelry, because they now know that you know what they want. And technology has really allowed us the data to be able to feed that, and know that this is what these customers like. And as you come in, we can be prepared for that for you, knowing that this is specifically what your needs are. And I think that's a rise of that hybrid model that didn't exist before, is just really being able to anticipate the customer's needs before they come, so that there is actually less time in the shopping experience in the store as we work through kind of COVID distancing and sanitation practices. The experience begins in the safety of your home, and then you come in to finish it, to put your hands on that jewelry to make sure it fits on your wrist or your ring, or you like the way that it looks. But you do a little bit more of your perusing online before you get there, which limits your actual in-store shopping. The next big point that I'm interested in everyone is just, kind of the pivoting of space. And Scott, you kind of touched on it with when you mentioned how your flower shops also have this kind of gift shop component. And I think flower shops are a really good kind of innovator in this kind of co-tenancy space that we're seeing. Is they always had an additional element. They were a flower shop, but they sold cards and they sold vases and they sold all these ancillary products that came around with that. And we see that, I think that there is a pivot in this world of how do you now use that space that is your brick and mortar for more than just housing your products, because that perusing is now happening online. How do you also maybe either partner in with a complementary product in that space, or do you use your space for different uses beyond just the retail, whether that's events or that's meetings or that's, even dinner parties, as we've actually worked with a few art galleries in that capacity where, the gallery space is a beautiful space to be. What can you do in there, in addition to just sell art? Well, you could have a dinner party, you could have a cocktail event. So I'm curious, just, across what everyone else is seeing, is how do we start to pivot our spaces to be more multifunctional and create a new revenue stream so that it helps support the business model, but also creates more of a, experience for that customer where they come in, they might come to the store, not even just to shop, they come there for a different experience and they end up shopping. So how do we kind of bring people together around product and have that product then become purchasable when that wasn't the initial thought that they were coming into the space for?
I think
go ahead.
Go ahead, Maggie.
No, go ahead. I'll go after.
I was going to say, I think we saw a lot of this experiential shopping coming to fruition before COVID. I know that in Zeppelin and in the Source, those displays are very curated to be not only displays, but very well done art pieces. They're supposed to be interactive. And I mean, you're looking at stores, especially in New York City, where those window displays have slowly crept into the store to make it more of an experience to draw you in. I'm curious what everybody thinks if that duality is possible now that we have to be super mindful of social distancing within the space. So if you want to create these really elaborate art pieces or displays, or you want to have room for events, what does that look like in terms of merchandising so you can navigate the space safely while having everything still be for sale, but distance? I'm just curious what everyone thinks about that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, personally, it's hard to talk specifically about COVID just because the situation is changing every week. It's kind of hard to really. I mean, I still think that there's it's not one thing for all retail. It all depends what your space looks like and how you adapt to it and everything. But I still think there's ways of doing this. But for us, first, what I want to say, like our spaces has always been like collaboration and doing more than just doing retail. Like, so like being a part, like I said, of a greater environment has always been the key. That's how I think now brick and mortar makes sense, is to be more than just brick and mortar, and that's how you can make sense out of it, I think, like financially, but also as an experience. And that has always been the case for us. So, and that's what we did also when even like when it first started and we got like completely shut down, like we started like the difference is that we're in kind of market halls. So like let's say the source, like all of our retail is part of an environment where we have like a flower shop and like 6 different restaurants and a bar and a 100-room hotel and everything. So we kind of all came together and we did different initiatives, like for let's say like for Mother's Day, like we like all the different vendors, we created like some like gift like packages for that we like for in terms of like proximity that we delivered ourselves, like the Mother's Day, and we went like all over Denver delivering like those packages that had like stuff from like all the different vendors, and it was food and soft goods and beverage, and like so it was really amazing. So there's a way of collaborating that way, and then even pre-COVID or like after COVID, because I think brick and mortar will still be, I think people will still be looking for that experience after, just like as I think people will continue traveling, and that's probably the moment that you discover the most, like some like that you shop like in brick and mortar the most, because you're just like wandering in the new city and you're open to just like discovering new places and just like so I think that will come back. But like us working with a lot of like smaller makers, and even us like doing some products a little bit, like we're just slowly starting to make more and more like that collaboration also with smaller makers and proximity makers. But yeah, that is super important. And so that we always like use our spaces to also collaborate to do like special events with like smaller like makers from here, and doing workshops. Like we did like a lot of events are more complicated right now, obviously, but like I still think there's ways of doing workshops with makers, and then having the people engaged and still do like social distancing and everything. And I think those, even if those kind of events, like doing like I said, like the workshop or stuff like that, are not directly to, the goal is not to sell anything, but I think it just brings like knowledge to the customer, and it helps them understand the work behind the object. Like lots of time, like objects or goods are just taking as they are, and people forget or don't understand like all the work that is behind it. So like doing things like that, I think it's a long-term work, and there's still a lot of education to do for it. But yeah, I think those are really good ways of engaging clients. And so with that whole like, so we used to do workshop and we wanted to do more and everything. And so during COVID, we actually took a space over that.
Uh-oh.
Matthew, we might have lost you.
I think we froze Matthew up mid thought there.
No.
Good thought too.
I know, right? I was really ready to hear what he was going to say.
I mean, I feel like what he's saying just is about the events and having that experience involved in the retail is even more like, you know, what you were saying, John, about how you're able to tell your story now in the digital space. You know, that's something that the customer really enjoys, is getting to know where this where you came from and how this all began. And same with the makers, I think what Matthew was just saying. But as we get him back online, that I kind of have another question I'm interested in posing is, you know, with COVID and with the way things are changing in the retail frontage, you know, some streets are being shut down to create more dining experiences, to create more kind of walkability, which I think is going to be a consistent theme throughout all cities. You know, John, knowing you have stores in alternate locations, is a store like Larimer coming back at a faster rate because those streets are shut down? It's creating a little vibrancy in that space versus a store that's, you know, not there. And then even along those lines, I think there's a whole other story, you know, regarding the shopping mall and how that experience in that space is really going to continue to change, where, you know, that being inside with a bunch of people in a shopping world potentially is something that's going to have the slowest time to come back. So I'm just curious, it's been very new, John, but I'm wondering if like the Larimer store, where there's a shut down street and there's more activity, is actually seeing more business on your side or not.
Well, interesting enough, we just opened our stores in the last week.
Okay.
So it's taking us time to get, you know, issues of security and people and scheduling and all these kinds of things. There were a lot of people that were getting pretty comfortable with unemployment and the CARES Act, and so they weren't as anxious to get back to work. So it's just taking us some time to work through that. But I think overall people are coming out little by little by little. We started early in March or late in March when everything was closed down, doing some shipping for e-commerce, and we eventually got to making appointments, and then we eventually got to curbside, and now we're eventually getting all of our stores open in the next couple of weeks and get rolling again. But it does take time, and it is difficult to put the whole operation back in place. So we have a pretty small workforce right now, and like I said, we're doing a portion of our business, and we think that Larimer and Fort Collins and Boulder, with freestanding stores, people are going to be a little bit more comfortable coming out to those stores than really getting into the malls right now. So the stores we have in malls are now, two of the three stores are now open, Park Meadows and Cherry Creek. And every day or every week, we're seeing more traffic in the malls, and we're seeing more people come out. So it's just a matter of time before people really feel comfortable coming out. I think Colorado's a little bit ahead of the curve because we're not having some of the other problems of like Arizona or Florida, where it's just going crazy right now. So, but to kind of go back to the question that you asked before, in terms of connecting with people and also the merchandise and how to drive more business in the store, and whether to share and do other things that we haven't done before. For us, it's a little bit different. We have security issues because we're selling high price things. And so for us, we're trying to bring in higher price point things and lower price point things to broaden our customer base. And so things like leathers and beads and things like that, that people obviously that are younger are wearing or wanting or more attractive, are things that we're really getting into to have more lower price point things. But we're also designing pieces that, you know, start at $75,000 or $100,000 and go up. And so we're trying to get customers that maybe live in Aspen or that have money that really want something unique or custom or whatever, to have an experience with me designing a piece for them and doing something special for them. And so we're just becoming more and more broad and taking the price points up and taking the price points down to be able to have a larger range of customers that can come into our stores.
I have a question for you, John. I'd like your thoughts on something, and obviously Tim, your thoughts as well. I just read an article about a Tupperware store display that they put on, about how they merchandised this pop-up where everything was displayed, but you didn't touch it. So you could see all of these like the purpose was you didn't want to lug a giant Tupperware container around the entire store with you as you kept shopping, but everything was either behind, acrylic or on really pretty pedestals, almost like an art gallery, where everything was very clearly marked with prices and displayed, but you didn't physically touch it and remove it and carry it around with you. Because you work in an environment where all of your product is behind glass, I'm curious as to what your thoughts are on if that model was translated into other retail stores that didn't sell just jewelry and sold them at things that are at lower price points that didn't necessarily have to be protected due to theft issues, but due to, obviously health precautions. If you have a clothing store and you just decide to display one shirt instead of putting out all sizes and all that, where you could potentially touch it. But I'm just curious as to what your thoughts are on if that model would work in other products.
I definitely think it's working. I mean, there's already businesses that are out there that are trying to do multi-lines or different things and different displays or different ways to have people touch or not touch the products. So I think that, back to what we said with the e-commerce and the digital piece of it, I think the whole experience has to change. It's in the process of change. It's going to take some time, but I think COVID has pushed it pretty fast, and it's changing it a lot right now. But I do think it will kind of come back to a little bit. I don't think everybody's going to buy jewelry online, just like everybody's not going to buy, or everybody's going to come into a store and buy a shirt. I think shirts and clothes that people don't feel comfortable trying on, obviously it's going to change. And so, in the case of Nordstrom's, who's at the Cherry Creek Mall, they have an online pickup in their store that people don't have to touch or talk to anybody. They're out shopping or they want to pick something up real quick. They pull it off the rack. It's sitting in a box or sitting in a bag. They walk by, they pick it up, and it's paid for and completely finished. So I think everybody's trying different things, and the jewelry industry, especially the fine jewelry industry, is a little different. To your point about security, you just can't put some things out and hope people don't walk off with them, because that's just not reality right now. But how you do display things in the case, that's changing as well. And so, we're just trying a lot of different things. Our windows are different. We're doing whatever we can to kind of keep with the times, knowing that our business model is our business model, and we got to be true to ourselves first and foremost.
Absolutely. Matthew, welcome back.
Yes, thank you. Sorry, I was outside and my iPhone overheated, so it was too hot. So
today.
That's a bummer.
Yeah, so sorry about that.
Oh, good. We'd love to hear what you have to say if you remember your train of thought.
I don't know where I talked for a long time before realizing my iPhone was dead. So yeah, so I wouldn't know where to start.
Well, I guess I could kind of ask a question and might bring some thoughts in. Matthew, I know that you guys are doing kind of this outdoor dining experience at the stores. I'd love to hear how you guys are kind of incorporating some of the tenants within the marketplace in that, and whether there's a retail component, or kind of what your thoughts were when you conceptualized that idea.
Yeah. Yeah, and the truth is the goal was to have retail there also. It seems that it is still not possible. So because, yeah, I think and I'm really for having rules and try to limit everything. I just think some of them don't make that much sense. But so legally we actually, because that was the whole plan. So we have 6 different restaurants. So we created that whole outdoor space that were all socially distanced, and we built domes. And that's a part of where us through retail. So in the domes, we built geodesical domes, and then we had canvas to create shade and everything. But we had like plants in the domes that had like planters that are made by Winter Session that are like based here in Denver. And then we had the flowers, like all the plants and flowers were from Beat and Yarrow, that's the flower shop. And people could buy them also in the domes while they were dining, and they could sit and like they could order from any of the different restaurants and have drinks there and everything. So anyway, so it's still happening. Just we wanted to have a stronger retail component for it. We had a space, but it seems that it's not possible because legally, yeah, you can do that. It seems like that they don't want people to be able to congregate where there's a liquor license. So yeah, I mean, malls are open, so I don't know how that is better, but I mean, yes. So we weren't able to do it actually, but I'm confident that as things change, we'll be able to do that, because I think it just makes a lot of sense to have a presence outdoor where we all know that it's way safer. So, but yeah, we really in all of our parties, and I was just working on that at Zeppelin Station also. So we're trying to bring also everything outdoor. So we took part of the street in front of it. So the street is closed now, and we have a lot more like seatings, other geodesic domes and all. So it just allows restaurants and bars to have a bigger capacity and make it a little bit more worthwhile for them. So the truth is that if you want to go back to the source also, so like how it is made, like we have restaurant, but we have a huge market hall that's a communal space that was kind of our retail spaces, but we rearrange all the retail in there to create more space for SAFTA, for one of the restaurants, to have tables actually outside of their restaurant, but in the market hall. So for us, it's win-win, because like I said, it is really like brick and mortar focus and like traffic focus, people coming to the restaurant and just like browsing to our space and everything. So for us, having more people coming to those restaurants are better. And then we just found ways of having that space kind of integrating people's seating and having dinner, but also having retails. But because of those, like how we present retail there with and kind of blocks that are like covered with glass and everything, so that has kind of a gallery feel to it. So I think it's super, yeah, interesting. And it just like, yeah, it brings like experiences that we would have not done otherwise, that might even continue after that, because we just find value in it. So yeah.
Tim, I'm curious if, we had been talking before this panel about a question that had to do with voting with your dollar and kind of spending with your dollar.
Yeah, I think that's a kind of a question for the group is,
yeah,
what does the new customer look like? What does the new consumer look like, knowing that, there is a lot of shift in where I'm spending my money. We've seen specifically through this last month of changes as, people are very conscious of where they are spending their money, and how as retailers can we, cater to that? Can we make sure that our alliances are known? And how do we just kind of see how that customer is evolving, and their needs might not be what is the least expensive anymore, or the fanciest, but what is, the highest quality manufactured, or, comes from a company with good morals. Or interested to see how people see that customer and how we can kind of build a retail future for them.
So for us, obviously, there's a huge price point between gold and silver. The price of gold is obviously a lot more. So when times are good, generally we see more gold purchases, more high-end purchases. When times aren't so good, they basically buy jewelry, but they buy less expensive things, more fashion, more silver, more things like that. The other thing that we're seeing a trend is, a year or two ago, there were very few sales outside of diamonds that were mined. And so people were buying diamonds that were mined and cut in traditional ways. And so over the course of the last year, there's a lot more above ground diamonds that are not artificial diamonds, but they're diamonds that aren't mined, produced, or grown. And so diamonds that have different price points because they have dark spots, or brown, or they're yellow, much more popular than they were. And then above ground diamonds have really come on pretty strong for us. An above ground diamond of quality grade as a mined diamond or a natural diamond is about half the price. So a lot of younger people are coming in and saying, hey, you know, I don't want to spend $10,000. I want to spend $5,000, but I want it to look like $10,000. And so they go to different alternative products that they never did before. So the range of what people are looking for has changed dramatically. And the type of people and the type of goods they're buying is completely different than they were just a few years ago.
Yeah, it's interesting.
To jump in on a little bit more broader scale, I think this is how I built Wolfberry's platform. This is the basis of it really is important of where you're putting your money. Through COVID, as retail is struggling, depending on which industry you're really in, if you put your money in a big box store, they're more likely to succeed as opposed to, you know, spending it at your local shop, local boutique, local restaurant. So it's you see where that money goes in your community. You see how it cycles through. And I believe SBA's statistics are, I think it's 67% of that money that you spend in a local shop stays in your local community. And what the point that you're making is I think that the new consumer is concerned about not only, you know, sustainability, that we're getting more and more information on sustainable brands, but also, you know, who the owner is, what their values are, how important that is before they decide to purchase. You're seeing a huge shift in movement right now to small artists and makers, but also specifically depending on, you know, their backgrounds. Why are you supporting them? Are you supporting them for special causes? Are you know, Blackout Tuesday? Where are you putting your money? This is a huge cultural discussion, and I think that we're going to see these businesses either thrive because we're supporting them and that's where we're putting our money, or we're going to see a return of large box stores that were made popular by convenience in the 50s.
I don't see the large box stores coming back. I think the shop local and have a personal relationship or an experience that is something that's memorable, I think is going to get stronger and stronger and stronger. I think some of the smaller people will grow into brands and develop and become larger, but I see it more unique. People are looking for something unique. They're looking for an experience. They're looking for a connection. And so stores that carry every brand or big box stores, I think, are going to really struggle going forward. You see the malls and their struggles. You see the large department stores, Macy's and Nordstrom's, and a lot of the big stores. They're suffering right now probably more than anybody. So I think I think shop local and shop and have an experience and know the owner and all that is going to be much, much stronger going forward.
Yeah, and I think it was a tendency that was already there before. It was like it was on that, or I mean, somewhat. I think it really just accelerated that whole idea. Like we personally, like I've been fighting for that for 20 years because that's all we always did, because we were producing locally, and even when we were carrying other brands, it was all. And like I said before, there's a big part of education in that also. Like people need to understand that there's different costs to making a like jewelry or a leather bag here in the US with leather that it's tan in the US now compared to do it in Bangladesh. And people have been used to pay $24 for a pair of jeans. That's so, I mean, so there's part of that, but I think that COVID kind of accelerated that people realizing and kind of understanding more like the value in that.
I was going to comment, Matthew, as well. You know, I know Zeppelin Station does kind of a rotating experience where you guys bring in different countries and you kind of have that country take over the marketplace. And, you know, being someone that's worked in hotels and hospitality, I think of how there's a timid traveler that's realistically not going to want to get on an airplane and travel again. And so how do you bring these retail experiences and these cultures from all over the world and make them present in Denver so that they don't need to leave their city to get that same experience?
Yeah, unfortunately, that's the thing I'm the most sad, because like when it all happened, like so mid-April, I think we were supposed to launch the new city, and we were actually doing Japan. So like with Tokyo, and we had like 25 different Japanese brands coming in, and some like really bigger brands like we were doing a big collaboration with Snow Peak and with even like Sanrio, but also with smaller like ceramists from Japan. And we had, anyway, it was an amazing program, but that obviously all was put on hold. We were trying to really do it in September, and you're right. I think there is value in that, people not being able to travel and all, I see that. But at the same time, it's really hard to make it worthwhile financially for a space like that, because it's also that like a big part of Made in the City has always been to bring makers from like everywhere coming here also and do residency and do workshops and like presenting them and bring chefs and restaurants. And now all this is kind of impossible. So at the same time, we don't want to do like a more boring version of it. And like, so yeah, anyway, we have an amazing program, but like we're waiting, we're going to see like how it takes. But I really think there is a lot of like value in doing that again. And that's why I really believe in local like brands and local production. But I also think that there's bringing the local from other places here is also a way of keeping it local, but still having people being able to travel and understand that the work, then the objects again, and all this. So anyway, so yeah, hopefully we'll be able to do that one soon. Yeah.
I just got back from Japan back in February, so I would love to see that exhibit, but hopefully you guys can do that another time. That would be incredible. Jeff, do you have, or sorry, Tim, do you have any closing thoughts?
No, I mean, I think this is all really good information, and I think a very good talk. I thank every one of you guys for providing your insights to us. It was very educational, and I think we are in for a change that was already beginning. This is just going to continue to fuel. I'm excited, particularly about the point that the big box stores probably aren't going to make it, and there is this return to local and return to owning goods from somebody who made them. John, which is what you built your business on, and how do you kind of create something that has value beyond just the object, and how do you create a retail experience that's beyond just purchasing the thing to purchase a thing, but really making it more of an experience or a story where you actually feel connected with that good, where you wear that item, whether it's jewelry or clothing, with a little bit more pride because you're able to support your community, and that you saw those local dollars going to work and actually kind of trickling down locally in your community and not flying up to Amazon. And that's, I think, one thing that I've seen through this is we all got stuck to Amazon for a while because we were forced into it. And I think in my perspective, we've seen so many people that have just moved away from that. In my particular case, I've watched myself go through more of my time to find something locally than I used to just do. And I was just like, oh, I can get that on Prime and it'll be here tomorrow. Well, I'm actually going to drive out today and get it. And even if it is at a larger retailer locally, at least that's something that I know that I'm employing somebody that's here and I'm not just having it shipped in. So I hope that trend continues. And I look forward to kind of seeing how these things evolve and, how these, our new store experiences works into a more experiential space.
Absolutely. And I just want to thank all of you guys for joining today. And I've really appreciated this discussion. It's been collaborative, informative, stimulating, and I hope that we can continue to have these talks. Obviously, Fireside at 5 was a platform created to bring, diverse minds together for an intentional discussion. And I feel like, after an hour of our time, it's just, we've come up with a whole thing of notes at the bottom of this agenda. You guys should check it out. I basically wrote everything down that we talked about. And of course, this video will be on YouTube on our channel if you want to share it with any friends who are curious about this particular discussion topic as well. I really appreciate your time. So thank you for joining.
Yes, thank you all. Have a wonderful evening.
Yeah, absolutely. Talk soon.
Great. Thank you so much for inviting us.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye.